all dressed alike?
I just wasn't, I don't have materials to hand out or anything, but I guess we can.
Well, we can do it. Y'all can prep for it.
Oh, I guess you did.
Swing it.
Um,
Improv.
That's fine, we can do whatever.
It's
Okay,
open
so-
mic hour.
No, I'm looking at my computer. I know what you're talking about.
do you want me to go over the elements first, Carolyn?
No, I can do it.
After 12:30.
I'm good.
Cause I kinda thought,
We're really good at winging stuff.
Did y'all, is this part of the role play that you and Taylor did?
No, she's talking about like the mock first meeting that I.
Oh.
no, the informed consent.
Yeah.
I mean, it should only be like 5-6 minutes, right? Less?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you just want us to
You
go
want
over
to say
like
what
what
we
we're
did
gonna
to
do?
the video?
Or do you want
Well,
us
if you would
No,
just
it's
do it like
different.
you would real, and then I'll go over
The video's
the
actually
elements.
The
intake interview.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Initial meeting.
As you guys listen to Carolyn doing this, these are the different elements that you need to make sure are covered in your informed consent. And we'll go over these in more detail, but first I thought I'd let them kind of role play it, and then, we're gonna ask that you guys, in addition to practicing doing the intake, if we have time today, you may split up and just get in pairs and practice doing the informed consent, but if we don't get to it today, I guess that you guys pair up at some point and practice this. With any informed consent, I mean, you don't want to get it down to where you kind of memorize something, because then if you mess up or you don't say something, then you get kind of flustered and you get off track. So I mean, it's more kind of coming up with your own spiel of how to cover all this. But you'll see how Carolyn does it, and then even if we have time, maybe we could put Kirsten or Erica or Jenna or Ashley or somebody else on the spot to do the same thing, just to see that it might be different, and know we want to
I
hear
memorize
Kirsten
stuff.
say.
That's what I do. So.
Is it okay if I pull up some of my past
Yeah.
stuff that I have?
Well,
like-
I memorize it, and then I always change it, but I
And then-
remember what I
yeah.
memorized.
For the memorize a certain script.
Yeah, so I can use this today. I can use this. I memorize it when I'm feeling a lot of pressure like the night before, and then I do great.
And I mean, to begin, the first couple, you do, when you think about it, you're gonna do this 25 times in your first 2-3 weeks of work, so by the 25th time, you'll have it pretty much down.
Well, what
But-
I just do a big group meeting.
That's what I did.
Perfect, yeah, and that's another easy way to get it.
I think I might have brought it up too in the individual meeting, just being like,
The
remember
reminder.
how we talked about this, cause I had one girl that didn't remember that.
Yeah, the confidentiality is probably, or the reporting thing is probably best to kind of cover once or twice. But the good thing about it, as you'll learn throughout your courses, a lot of this is what you would need to cover in any informed consent the first time you see a client or student anyway, and so it'll prepare you in that.
Okay, so I'm just pulling up some stuff that I use, so like Josh said, all of our kids are gonna get like a Razor Coach folder, like we just had red little folders last year, and we would put some of our materials in there, like the grade timelines to kind of go through. So what I would do is say, you're all my students. We're in our big counseling center classroom at Harvard High School. So once you guys get here, my name's Carolyn Starnes. I'm gonna be your Razor Coach this year. Yes, my name's Carolyn Starnes. So thank you guys for coming to our first meeting. You guys, as you all got your letters, were selected to be part of our program this year, so that's really exciting. Today, I'm just gonna kind of introduce myself, talk a little bit about who I am. We're gonna kind of go over program basics, like what to expect throughout the year, and how are these meetings gonna go. And then we're gonna kind of talk about an incentive program that we'll try to implement throughout the year, and you guys will have a chance to win some prizes and stuff, so that'll be fun. So who I am, I'm Carolyn Starnes. I just got married a couple weeks ago. This is my 3rd year as a grad student at the U of A to get my school counseling master's. So I'll be a school counselor, just like you guys have school counselors here. This is my 2nd year working at Harbor as a Razor coach. So I had 25 kids last year, just like you. So now I'm going to kind of go over an informed consent. So if you don't know what that means, that just kind of means I'm going to tell you kind of what we'll talk about, what things I might say. Let's go grab your counselor for that, just in case something might go a little deeper. So my role, like I said, I'm in school to be a school counselor, but I'm not a school counselor yet. Right now my role is a college and career coach for you guys. So what we're going to be talking about is about your future. What are your interests? Where do you want to go to school? Where do you maybe want to go do as a career in your future? But as you know, we're probably going to be meeting like twice a month, maybe more. So we'll get to know each other fairly well. And when you kind of get to know each other, you kind of get a relationship, and we might feel pretty comfortable with each other, and our conversations can kind of veer off sometimes from just college and career. But if that ever happens and we kind of talk about maybe you wanting to hurt yourself, or somebody else hurting you, or you wanting to hurt other people, then that's kind of going to be conversations to have with your counselor and let people know about that. So if our conversations ever lead that way, I'll let you know that we need to go share that information. But otherwise, whatever we talk about is just going to be between us. Unless you have maybe a question beyond career and college stuff that I don't know the answer, then I can go ask your counselor or find that information for you. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions about that stuff? I know it's kind of weird. Okay. If you ever have questions, yes, Jenna.
Will you tell my parents about my college choices and what I want to do?
We can talk about if you want to share that information with your parents, but right off the bat, I'm not going to have a lot of contact with your parents, but if you feel like there's stuff that you want to share with them, that you don't think they might not be on board with that, I can help you talk to them about that. Kylie.
What if I have a teacher I really don't like and I'm doing really bad in their class? Are you gonna go tell them or talk about them to you?
No, I'm not going to go tell your teachers if you don't like them. If you are struggling in the class, though, and you're worried about your grade and you're nervous to approach them about that, that's something I can help you with. Do that too. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so now that we covered that, let's see, yes, okay, got all that checked. Now I'm gonna kind of go over our program expectations really fast. So what can you expect when you come to our meetings? How to contact me? All right, so procedures for our meetings at Harbor High School. What I'm gonna be doing is I'll get all of your guys' email address, and every week I'm gonna let you know when your next meeting is and when we schedule to meet through email. And I would really appreciate it if you could just email me back and say, okay, I got it, that time works for me. Or I got your email, but I think I have a test that day, or I don't think that's a good time for me to meet, and we'll try to reschedule, okay? So it's important for you to check your email on when we're gonna be meeting. All right, like I said earlier, we're gonna try to schedule our individual meetings every other week. And you'll get your little green note to get out of class, because you know here at Harbor High School, we use our green notes to get out of class. So that'll come, it'll tell you to come to the counseling center for your Razor Coach meeting. So bring that with you so I can sign it for you to go back to class. And if you ever miss a meeting, like say I emailed you and we scheduled a meeting, and then you just didn't show up, then I'll probably email you later that day and say, hey, missed you at your meeting, and I'll let you know what we're going to cover and talk about, and I'll probably send you some materials over the email, like things we're going to go over. And I'll probably ask you to bring some of those things back, just so I know that you read them and saw them. All right, so expectations for you. This is what I'm expecting for you to do to get the most out of this program for you to help yourselves. So like I said, come to your scheduled meetings, be on time, try to be engaged during our meetings. We're going to work on setting goals every week, so make sure that you know, we're going to talk about what you want to accomplish throughout the whole year and break those goals up into little steps every week. So just make sure that you're engaged in those goals every week to get those things accomplished. Let's see, meet all deadlines for outside work. Sometimes I might say, take this home with you, look over it during Christmas break or Thanksgiving break. So just be sure if I ever do something like that, just try to ask you to bring it back. Let's see, be prepared to meetings. You guys got red folders. I'm gonna ask that you bring those red folders to all of your meetings. This way we can just keep all of your stuff in one spot. So if I give you any handouts during your meetings, you can just keep them in your folder. Make sure you ask me questions if you don't understand something or need me to clarify something. Don't be afraid to ask me any questions. Let's see, this says communicate with your teachers about classes or assignments that are going to be missed due to Razor Coach meetings, but I'm also going to be communicating with your teachers about when your meetings are as well. So they should know when I'm going to be getting you out of class, okay? Just make sure you make up your missed work, and like I said, bring your Razor Coach folder. Alright, and then what you can expect from me as your coach, I'll be sure to be prepared for all your meetings. I'll know when we scheduled our meetings, and I'll know what we talked about in our last meeting, and then have new stuff to talk about at our next meeting, and make sure we follow up with everything that we talked about last time. I'll be on time to our meetings, and I'll let you know in advance when your meetings are. Like I said, I'll be emailing you every week. Or I'll let you know if I have to change our meeting times, like if I'm sick and won't be there that day, I'll let you know that we're not going to have our meeting that day. And then this is my contact information. That is my cell phone number, so please do not abuse that. That is just for emergencies only. If you're going to be missing a meeting like that day of and you can't remember my email address off the top of your head, you can put my cell phone number in your phone. Just text me, okay? But otherwise, that's all that is for, okay? Just emergency stuff. Otherwise, contact me through my email address, all right? All right, does anybody have any questions about that? Anything? All right, I really appreciate it. So this is gonna be, we might do some big group meetings like this, maybe once a month, just so we can get everybody together and go over some big picture stuff that everybody will want the information for. But otherwise, our next meetings are just going to be individual, one-on-ones. So here in the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be meeting with you guys, just one-on-one. And we're just going to kind of go over who you are and what your interests are and where you stand right now. What are you thinking about for next year after you graduate? So that's what we'll talk about in our first meetings coming up. And I'll email you when I schedule those. Does that sound good? All right. Okay, done.
Very good, thank you.
Oh yeah, I was also gonna pull up the incentive program thing if you guys do that,
We actually have a new,
a new thing.
yeah, it's one of these handouts, I was gonna mention that. One handout that goes over program expectations, one side is what will be in the red folder, and the other side is just a resource for you.
Oh yeah, I was gonna touch on, Erica had like the All About Me page last year. I just made a getting to know you where I would have them put their contact info and then maybe 2 classes that they would prefer to get pulled out of. But then I would make sure it wasn't like AP something.
Yeah.
And then, fun, whatever they would want me to know about them right off the bat. Like that.
And that's a really good thing too, to knock everything out in like one kind of group meeting, like getting their contact information and getting like your informed consent knocked out, and like just, you know what I mean, like if you can meet in like a small group or a big group or something like that, I find it to be better than to meet one-on-one, because your one-on-one is kind of quick, if that makes sense, and then it's like, oh, I have to do this like 20 more times, so.
Yeah, that's a very good point, to try to do it all together.
She didn't really need me up here, I thought we were gonna.
I know.
What else do you wanna add?
No,
I didn't have anything to add. I thought
Thank you,
this
no, that was really good, I
this
think you
was
covered
really
it
good.
all, and, I appreciate you letting me put you on the spot like that.
Yes, sorry.
A couple of things, with the cell phone, that, you guys each can kind of make up your own policy on what you feel like
Yeah.
you want to do, with your cell phone. I know last year we had some coaches who texted, their main source of communication was texting back and forth.
Yeah.
Now, you can run into issues if not all your students may have phones. I mean, more and more,
Yeah.
I think we found that most students,
And a lot of them
surprisingly,
don't have computers either, so
yeah,
that's
have
something
phones
we-
but don't have email. So that's something that you wanna kind of gauge from your students the best way. But if you would like to do the emergency-only cell phone policy, that's fine. Or if you want to use more communication of texting, that's fine as well. So that's kind of a choice that you guys get to make with that. If you do use your cell phone for work, I think you can write it off, right? Can't you? Tax-wise? Josh isn't listening to my kind of on the phone.
Huh? I missed that.
Can't you, if you use your phone for work, can't you?
Yes.
Tax write-off?
It's a tax write-off.
It's not a tax write-off. Oh, I don't know about that, but
Oh.
the U of A, if you have AT&T,
Wow.
you can, there's a U of A code you can get for like a 15% discount. I don't know anything about tax write-off.
Verizon too.
At 17.
You have to
Really?
go into the store and
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
look up your, you have to show
I don't
them
know
like
about the tax thing.
a receipt of your payment.
I would just assume that it would be a tax write-off, no?
Well, if it is, we need to check on that.
I know, I mean, I've
Yeah,
never done it before,
you
but
can-
now that I'm thinking
You
about
can
it.
do it, but
gives you a separate
your
number.
deduction would have to be, you'd have to itemize everything.
Yeah.
Generally,
Yeah,
college
yeah.
students aren't gonna.
So yeah, I would just go and get your, I think it's a 17%
It's
not worth it.
discount.
Right.
I think Verizon is 17%.
Okay, so yeah, definitely go get your discount, it makes a difference, I signed up for that a couple of years ago.
But I would also add to make sure that it's okay with your school that you text the students.
Yes,
Because
yes.
then you might run into some trouble there.
They'll text you back
So
during
that's,
class.
yeah, so that's,
Yeah.
something to talk to your liaison, and if you do text with them, make sure they understand that, yeah, texting you in class, or texting you while they're driving, or, you know,
Or
that
late
that's
at
not-
night,
Yeah.
it's like just a
Yeah.
hey text is inappropriate.
Yeah, so, and I mean, but all of that's good information and knowledge, and a good education for them to have as well. So, any questions that first pop up before we kind of highlight some of the things on this sheet about informed consent? Josh, you look like you're going to ask us.
I was just gonna mention the points incentive thing, just because it was on that. But in the handouts, there's a document kind of showing how coaches have used the points incentive plan in the past. And that's kind of gonna be up to you guys if you want to use that. And I think the way we used that in the past is to encourage students to kind of come to the meetings, more or less. We can't purchase incentives ourselves for attendance, so that will be up to you guys, but I would just suggest taking a look at this. There's some information on the drive on points incentive plans that were used by coaches in the past, and we'll kind of come back to this during some small group supervision meetings at the beginning of the year, but if you have questions about that, I guess let us know. Does any coaches want to talk about how y'all used that last year?
Is that something, I mean, we don't have to use it though.
No, I mean, I encourage you to use it, because I think it has helped with coaches in the past to get students to come.
Yeah, I
But it's
started
not something we
using it,
require you to do, no.
And then I didn't really have any problems with kids coming, and then I only had Halloween stickers throughout the year, so I only had like one girl asking for them, so I just didn't do it, and then threw a party for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I did
I
too.
didn't really keep very good track of like a point for every single little
Yeah.
thing, like bringing your folder or bringing something back. I more just kept track of attendance, and then at the end of the year, or I did one at semester, like if you didn't have any absences from our meetings, then their name went in a raffle for like a $10 Target or Walmart gift card or something. And then at the end of the year, I had one student who hadn't missed a meeting all year, and I got him like a $25 iTunes gift card.
Whoa.
And then I had like 3 or 4 kids that missed like 2 or 3 meetings, and then I put them in a raffle for like a $10 iTunes gift card or something.
I think that's a really, I think.
But I didn't never
That's
really,
really is the
Yeah.
attendance more so than the points,
Yeah.
It's
because.
just
because
a
I
lot to
didn't
keep track
really-
of. It takes
yeah.
a lot of time.
and I
Yeah.
never really told them that I was like, okay, I'm really keeping a track of your attendance, like at the end of the year, if you
But you
have
never
perfect
told
attendance.
them.
I never really told them until the end of the year. I was like, okay, this is a reward for these people. So maybe it might be better if I actually say like, I'm keeping track
Mhm.
of your attendance.
Yeah.
There'll be a raffle, like if you wanna be a part of this, come to the meetings, you know.
I
Jenna?
do random ones throughout the year based kind of on timelines. So like ACT prep time, I said whoever brings it and shows me that they did, because I made copies that they did some of that they, get a $10 Sonic, or whoever turns in, they have a local scholarship application, whoever gets that to me first gets another $2.
Or gives it to you first, I thought you meant whoever brought it to us.
No, just whoever money did you
Yeah.
first, or
High roller.
for me, like, I don't know, that's how I did it based on kind of what we were working on, some little incentives, cause I know for me, tracking the points, it will not be my strength.
Yeah, I think that's better to do it based on like one
No, 'cause that's hard.
action or behavior versus the, now I know Taylor and.
She was intense about all of it.
Yeah, and there's
Yeah,
actually, I
It
Taylor
think,
worked
and
for
Heather
her,
were
it worked
pretty-
really well for that.
on the drive, we have Taylor, we've uploaded a very detailed example of how Taylor did it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is kind of a summary of
She
what
has to
all you
figure
guys turned in at the end of the year.
personality too,
Yeah.
'cause I could never do that.
Yes,
Would
I
never
mean, and I
want.
think that's important, yeah, make it fit
Again, you're.
what you
Yeah.
know you'll do, because
Yeah.
you don't want at the beginning of the year say, I'll give you points for all these things and then not
Exactly.
follow through, because
Exactly.
that's worse than not even doing it. So think about, I mean, I like these ideas of kinda, first person to get this to me, or you haven't ever missed a meeting, I mean, I think that those things are easier to track, cause you're tracking them anyway, but.
And I'm cheaper, so I baked like cookies and cupcakes instead of gift
Yeah.
cards. So that's something
They still would like that,
to
I'm
do.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, we can't,
Was your school okay with that?
Yeah, my
Okay.
schools were okay.
Yeah, I
Um,
have to check.
we can't
Usually the smaller schools,
We do what we want. so.
yeah, you can
Just
kind
run
of get
that
away
way.
with baked goods and things, but I know sometimes, and I don't know, with high
Store-bought, it can be
school.
closed, like at other schools, right? Like it can be.
Yes, yeah, you can
it
store by,
has to be, yeah.
has to be closed, but I think the high schools are a little bit more lax on that, than
Yeah.
like elementary
Elementary,
schools
it's
are like.
no, don't
Yeah.
give them sugar.
Yeah.
I just
That's
don't think
self-Rogers,
Rogers.
reservation.
But also ask your principals and your liaisons, because I know that like I got like a t-shirt from Greenland that like they had to give to one of my kids who had been like really active and stuff. And so don't feel like you have to spend money if they have stuff, if they have like pencils and, you could literally put together like a little basket thing, for your kids, and it could be all free stuff, so.
I just
Sonic
really-
drink cards, I mean, I
Yeah.
think Whitney just showed up at a Sonic
Oh, they'll just give them to you.
one day and you were like, and explain, hey, I work with high school students and it was
So we'll
advertised.
Yeah, reach out to
Chick-fil-A.
local businesses around your school. I mean, they're always willing. I mean, I'm sure they're being contacted by school people too, but yeah, reach out to them. We can't reimburse you for incentives, but we will be doing t-shirts again at the end of the year for students. I mean, maybe use that as an incentive. If you guys attend all your meetings, then you complete the program, get a t-shirt. But right now, all we've got approval to do is recruitment and evaluation incentives. So.
I'd feel bad.
But think about it, look this over, think about it, and we'll bring this up in some small group supervision the first couple weeks. And on the student folders, instead of spending time in here talking about everything that's gonna be in them, I'm gonna send out an email. Everything is on the drive that we put in the folders, so I'll send out an email very detailed about what that is. Basically, it's just a folder that will be given to all new students and all booster students with different information from our curriculum, and obviously you're not limited to just using that stuff, but those are, what we have on the drive is kind of the minimum that we want to be in those, and
When are you stuffing folders?
that's gonna be on the coaches. You guys will be responsible for making those for your students, so for booster students, you may know that sooner than later. For your treatment students, you may have to wait until kind of recruitment starts, I guess.
Yeah.
But we'll have all the supplies available, and you guys can schedule a time or figure out a time on your schedule to come up and make those. That's all I have.
Sounds good.
Okay, so going back to when Carolyn did the informed consent, I feel these are the things that you want to make sure you cover in some way or fashion during your informed consent. I think, the top thing's pretty self-explanatory, and you don't necessarily need to cover and say, we're gonna do career exploration, college post, you don't need to necessarily go through each one of those, but, this could be, does this go in a folder?
It didn't last
I don't
year.
think we
Okay.
did,
I mean,
no.
it might be, as I'm looking at it, I don't know that I
That'd be good.
see any reason for it not to.
Yeah, I think we did.
And in a way,
We do have the program expectation thing goes in there.
what you could even do is have your students initial this and give it back to you. But I don't think, they sign an informed consent, but, if you wanted to put this in the folder, I don't think that's a bad idea. I don't think there's anything in here that, you know, we wanna be really careful, and Josh and I kinda talked about this yesterday. We wanna be careful about when we're recruiting or talking to students, that, you know, we don't use words like, okay, you guys were all chosen because you're at-risk students, or you, I mean, and I think that's selfish, but you just never know, because a student might ask, well, why us? Why are we?
They did ask.
They do
Yes.
ask that.
And so how do you answer that? Well,
Mine was free and reduced lunch at Greenland, and then it was, the, oh gosh, I can't think of the word. Remedial kids at West Fork, remediation. They kind of understood that it was just because that's where we recruited from, is from the remediation classes. So they understood that, then they didn't have a problem with that. I think it's gonna be different if we do it again, you know, they're wanting to do something different at West Fork, I don't know, that's what Karen said. But at Greenland, I would always have kids say, well, why can't I come to this lunch meeting, or why am I not in the program, or why didn't I get selected, or whatever, and to come to the recruitment thing. And I would just always say, well, it was just a random selection, or this was selection from like the administration or something. I would kind of put it off me. That sounds bad, but I wasn't going to be like, oh, because all these kids are free and reduced lunch, and
Right.
you're not, so.
no, and you wouldn't wanna say that,
No,
yeah.
obviously,
Yeah,
yeah,
you wouldn't
I
wanna
would,
disclose.
yeah, so I would just kind of put it off me and just say it was a random selection, or.
I said
Kinda
that
was,
each,
but, you
each
know.
school has its own criteria and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And,
Did you
and
say
I
that
said
during your recruitment meetings or once they?
they asked, like some of the kids during, cause when I did recruitment, I did really small groups, so they're real comfortable just asking random
yeah.
questions, and so.
No, I was in the hall walking out, and I had kids ask that weren't at the recruitment presentation meeting. Oh, well, why didn't I get to get out of class and come
What all
to
did you
this?
say
Like, why can't I apply? And I was like,
I just went into the spiel about how there's however many, 15 different high schools, and each school picks different criteria, and so, and then I think I made some joke about like, we're not interested in, working with kids with 4.0s, something like, I don't know, I didn't make it sound demeaning though, and everybody was laughing, I can't remember what I said, but it took the edge away to where
Yeah,
it was
work
like,
with
you're
good
obviously, you
students.
don't have a 4.0, but I'm not letting them know that some of them, have
Yeah.
low at-risk GPAs and stuff like that, so.
well, and with that being said, like, I did have kids on free and reduced lunch that were 4.0 students, and one of my students got the governor's scholarship here.
And so I didn't, like, we had a
Got
GPA
a
cutoff, so it just depends on your
30%.
criteria.
She made my job super
Yeah,
easy,
okay,
so it's
yeah.
like,
Thank you.
it was a little bit like, why are you with her? Because she had her stuff together.
And I think, you can always kind of go in with both of those scenarios, that we have, each school use different criteria to select students, and one of the things, that I think all of them say is, your counselor, your administration, knows that you have the potential to do well in this program and thought that you'd be a good candidate for it, and I think that's a given across the board, is that, the counselors have identified them based on these criteria, but we also are not choosing those students that, not choosing them, but not including students that, are so below a certain GPA or don't have the academic potential or that not to say the motivation, but wouldn't be good candidates for it. So I think that's another good way too, to pull in a strength also, is that, you've been selected because
You fit the
you
program.
fit with this program, and you have potential to really succeed and do well in this program.
Yeah.
And I think typically something like that might
They
shut
don't
those
keep
questions
talking,
down, but if
yeah.
they continue to talk about it and it's in a big group, I would just say, I really appreciate that you wanna know more about this, so when we meet
Yeah.
one-on-one for the first time, we can talk more about that. And then one-on-one, I think it's okay to talk to a student about, well, here are some of the criteria that we looked at, free and reduced lunch, or first generation college students. I think one-on-one, that's okay to share with that student, but in a big group,
Yeah.
it's more stigmatizing and you don't wanna make it, kind of stand out, so.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way
Well,
to
they
handle
could
that.
just Google it, right? I mean, or, I mean, on our website, does it have
I
a
don't think they
picture?
know that we have a website until we tell them.
Yeah, and I'd be very
Yeah,
impressed
they
for,
could.
I mean, that student shows some good
Yeah,
initiative
that would be
and
remarkable.
resources.
Do we have
to
like at
do
risk
it.
on
I
there?
think I took it
I
off.
think we kinda took most of
Oh,
that stuff
okay.
off there.
Oh, good,
It's
okay,
not on
good.
Can't Google it?
Speaking of this, I'm gonna email this out, but for new coaches on recruitment stuff, we didn't dive in and pull up all the recruitment documents earlier in the summer, but we've got like parent brochures, student-friendly handouts, so they're all kind of tailored to the different groups. So for instance, the student stuff doesn't have at-risk criteria on it, where stuff you hand to your teachers does. So please go out and make sure that you're checking those documents out. If you go to your school and are handing things out, that you're making sure that you're not handing out a brochure that'd be for teachers to students and things like that. So that's just something to be aware of.
And it's cheesy, but you know, there's a lot of literature, and I kind of like it, even though it is a little cheesy, that takes the at-risk and says at promise instead of at risk. Kind of talking about, yes, there are these certain characteristics that have been shown to possibly create some barriers for you in your pursuit of education, but really, you know, your counselors have recognized you because you're at promise. You have these potential and this strength to move beyond these possible characteristics that could hold you, or these, not characteristics, but these variables that could hold you back, so.
Yeah.
But I think students kind of, once you sort of answer it in a general way, they pretty much are,
Yeah.
okay, so,
Throw out some big words and they're like, okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
exactly, so. Okay, so looking, and I'm sorry, I keep checking on my note, I'm supposed to deliver a laptop here in about 10 or 20 minutes downstairs, but anyway. So looking over this, now you know, I mean, everybody went through the mandated reporting, workshop, and this is something that I know the first couple of times you do it, it feels awkward and it feels weird to like tell a group of people, now if you tell me that you're gonna hurt yourself, hurt somebody else, or someone else is hurting you, but it's one of those things that we have to cover. You're a mandated reporter, no way around it. Everyone in their school is, and so sometimes that's even a good reminder to students, just share, you know, as you all may or may not know, anyone who works in the school system is a mandated reporter, which means that if you share with me, you wanna hurt yourself, somebody else, or anybody's hurting you, then I have to get someone else involved. And most likely, that's first gonna just be your school counselor, and then we'll go together from there and figure out what we need to do. But you need to make sure you cover that. This is something as future counselors you have to cover with any parent, student, client that you work with. So any questions on, and most of the time, you're more nervous saying it than they even really react to it. I mean,
It's good to remind the students that you think there might be something, because there were definitely students where I thought that something could happen, they might tell something, but to remind them more often about the informed consent, just randomly, like
Yes.
once a month or twice, you know.
and you know, with the confidentiality thing, I mean, because you're not acting in a counselor role, we can't necessarily promise them the strictest of privacy and confidence, because we do talk frequently with their school counselor, the liaisons. You also might have where you're meeting in an open area in the library, or you're in the cafeteria and someone might walk by, and if we were to promise, you know, strictest of confidentiality, we wouldn't even be able to have those types of open meetings. But I do think it's, you know, fair to share, kind of like what Carolyn said, you know, what we talk about will be between us. If there are things that you want to share with your parents, I'm more than happy to help you talk with them. Anybody have parents actually call them ever and ask what you're doing with their student?
I had parents email me a couple times.
And I think you could give that as an example. You know, if your parents reach out to me and ask me what we're working on, I'll be more general and say, well, this month we're working on ACT stuff, next month we're talking about careers in college. And then, you know, I might invite them in if they want to come in and talk more, and then bring you in to talk with them. But I'm not going to disclose anything. I keep going in and out of role play. I'm not going to disclose anything unless we've talked about it and I have your permission to talk with them about it. So in all essence, we really do try to provide them the most privacy and confidentiality we can, but there are some limits to that in terms of what your role is. I think, the other thing when you're talking about the difference with that, even, not necessarily even mandated reporting stuff, but I think, and I can't remember exactly how you worded this, but you did, if, Carolyn talked about, we'll be working really close together, we'll develop a relationship, and there may be things that you decide you want to share with me that may go deeper beyond the college and career focus, and if that's the case, I'll be sure I talk with you about that. That's not really something that we can talk about in these meetings, but we can go and talk with your counselor or find you the appropriate resources, and I think that's kind of how you put it in a sense. So you do want to kind of let them know too, because once you develop a relationship with these students, who knows some of the things that, they're going to see you as a trusting person, and they're going to come, and you may be the first person to hear about a fight at home, or being, punched in the face, or I'm pregnant, or I slept with my boyfriend for the first time last night, I tried meth for the first time yesterday, all of those fun scenarios that you're like, oh great, why didn't they just tell me that?
Yeah.
But, and that's where we come into play. If I think you can always, in those types of situations, you can always go back to, remember the first day when I talked to you about sometimes there might be things that you share with me that we need to get somebody else involved. Well, this is one of those things that I really think we need to go talk with your counselor about, or a parent, but this goes beyond what I'm allowed to do as your Razor coach. So once you tell me what you're comfortable with, and if you want to go to your counselor together, if you want to talk with your counselor, if you want me to talk to your counselor, I would kind of give them different options. And if they say, oh, well, I'll talk to my counselor about it, you need to make sure that, okay, but once you have, I'll give you a couple of days and let me know, and if not, then I'm going to have to talk to them about it. And hopefully not a lot of those situations will come up, but they will. Not a lot, but. So I think that's just something, in that moment, if it does, you can always, you guys should all have my cell phone. Does everybody have my cell phone number? Okay, 790-9521. 479, sorry. Just go. 479-790-9521. And I'm fine with you guys texting, calling, not any time, not 4 a.m. But in those moments, and it could even be, and I always tell students, just be genuine and authentic in those moments too. And if a student shares something with you, it might be, I appreciate that you feel that you trust me enough to share this information. I think this is one of those times where I need to get your liaison in, but if you'll give me a minute, I'm going to call my supervisor and just kind of touch base with them about, you can always, and it's been in my experience anytime when I was working with kids or teenagers or adults that they respect that. That you're showing them respect that, I need to just check and see what kind of my protocol is here. But anytime, I think just bringing in your liaison is the best action. Coaches, any suggestions on when you've had that come up, how you handled it differently, or?
I suggested going to talk to the counselor, but she didn't want to at all, so then I just became the mandated reporter and listened to the story, got the information, and then called.
Okay.
But one question I do have, real quick, if they talk about being sexually active with you, is it really just if that person, should you ask how old that person is? And then if.
Like how old their partner is?
Right.
I would try to, again, say, do you want to go talk to your
Yeah, she
school
did
counselor?
not want to talk to a counselor ever.
I would probably.
Is this the one you had to report?
Mm-hmm. This is a different scenario.
And remember, you don't want to become the investigator. You
Right.
don't want to become the one.
Right. I just didn't know what, I obviously made her, I just said that's, like you were saying, that's going deeper than college career readiness, basically, and that if we do keep talking about it, then we're gonna have to go talk to a counselor and everything if you want to, this is your counselor, you can go meet. She knew how to sign in with them and everything. And she just that drama, so. But what if she just told me, you know, like what if she had just said, oh, he's 30 and before I could be like, stop.
Well, then I think you would,
Just
be
have
honest
to
with her
go.
and just say, this is, and again, I would always start with letting them know that you appreciate them
Yeah.
trusting you and sharing this,
Yes.
and kind of validating that may have been difficult to do, to
Right.
share that information, but unfortunately, these are one of these things because I want you to always be safe.
Mhm.
Go back to the reason why we do this is basically for their safety and because we're concerned about them, and so this is one of those things that I will have to report.
So I would just tell a counselor I wouldn't call DHS.
No, you have to.
Yes,
Still
no,
have to
and that was
report.
one of the
Yes.
things,
Yeah.
once you're told something that's worth reporting, but dictates reporting, you have to make the report. It cannot be a secondhand knowledge. And even if they say, well, I'm gonna go talk to my counselor, and then even if the school counselor tells you, I'm gonna call it in, you need to also call it in to cover yourself and to make sure, because you probably can trust that your school counselor will call it in, but you've been given that information and you
Right.
both need to call, it in, or you can call it in together
Yeah.
and, say, both of us were told,
Confirmation number.
huh?
Well, don't they always ask, does anyone else know about this
Yes, yeah,
Mhm.
information? And so as long as you have the call number, I can't remember what they call it, but they give you a number that says, this is record of whatever, and as long as you have that number.
can let them know. And I've done them together too, where we said, yes, as the school-based mental health counselor, I made the call, and yes, the school counselor is also aware of the situation, she's sitting right here, would you like to talk to her? And we've done that together as well, but you wanna make sure that if you're given that information, that you outline it,
Mhm.
so.
For me, it was like, I had a girl whose mom was in an abusive relationship, and it was just a lot of like tumultuous stuff going on all the time, like she would come in really upset, and it was because the mom's boyfriend kicked them out, and now they're like having to move back in with grandma, and I felt like this happened like almost every 2 months, there was like something going on. Then she came in one day and it was like, I guess he like beat her up so bad that she was like in the hospital, and so, obviously at that point I was like, okay, the first time, we need to go talk to Miss Larkin, we need to go talk to Hope, we need to go talk to somebody who can maybe talk to her mom, because the harm, even though it wasn't directly happening to her, it was still affecting her, and it was still
And you
including her,
can
so-
and usually should, if there's violence in the home, sorry, I've gotta run this downstairs really quick. Hotline that because it's an unsafe environment, so. Alright, let me run this downstairs really quick, and if you guys think of any other questions or thoughts, and maybe the coaches can answer first, and then I'll. Does she know where we are?
Yeah, if y'all want, we can take a quick break too. She should be here in the next 10 minutes. And I'll
So
see her.
if the girl is 16.